Section 1. Facing the Shadow. Where real manifestation begins. There comes a moment in your life. It doesn't arrive with thunder. There's no announcement, no warning. It simply appears. Usually in the silence between distractions, in the breath between breakdown and breakthrough. When you've tried everything, when your journals are full, your vision boards overloaded, your heart exhausted. You've said the affirmations, visualized the life, held the crystals, burned the sage, prayed, released, let go, let go, let go, and still nothing. And so you ask quietly, what's wrong with me? But maybe the question isn't what's wrong with me. Maybe the question is, what have I been refusing to see? You see, manifestation isn't magic. It's not some cosmic vending machine where you insert desire and receive destiny. It's alignment. And alignment doesn't come from pretending to be okay. It doesn't come from spiritual bypassing or painting over pain with positive words. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." And that is where we begin. Because if your life is a mirror, if what you attract is a reflection of what you are, then manifestation begins not with your vision, but with your shadow. Your shadow is not the darkness in you. It's the parts you've rejected, the anger you weren't allowed to feel, the grief you were told to get over, the neediness you were shamed for, the hunger for love you buried beneath independence. And the irony is, while you've been chasing light, it's your shadow that's been driving the car. Every unspoken fear, every unresolved wound, every quiet belief that says, "I'm not enough." They've all been vibrating louder than your dreams. Because the universe doesn't respond to your goals, it responds to your frequency. And your frequency isn't shaped by what you want. It's shaped by who you are when you're not trying to prove anything. So maybe the reason things aren't moving is because deep down, you're still trying to manifest from a place of lack. You're trying to call in love while fearing abandonment, trying to build wealth while carrying shame around desire, trying to live freely while being imprisoned by self-doubt. You are speaking abundance, but vibrating scarcity. You are praying for peace, but bracing for pain. You are asking for love, but preparing for loss. And the universe hears what you prepare for, not what you say. That's why you keep attracting the same lessons in different bodies, the same heartbreak in different names, the same limitations in shinier packaging, not because you're broken, not because you're cursed, but because you've been skipping a step. You've been trying to manifest around the shadow instead of through it. And real alignment, the kind that bends reality, only comes when you integrate the parts of you've been trying to leave behind. So maybe, just maybe, you don't need another affirmation right now. You don't need another morning routine or manifestation hack. What you need is honesty. Raw, unfiltered, heart-wrenching honesty. What do you really believe about yourself? When no one's watching, when the lights are off, when your mask is on the floor, what story is still running in the background? Is it, "I'm too much"? "I'm not lovable"? "Success isn't safe"? "I don't belong"? "I have to earn everything, even love"? Because if so, those aren't thoughts. They're frequencies, and your life will reflect them, not to punish you, but to show you what's still unhealed, what still needs your love, because that's what the shadow is. It's not the enemy. It's not your darkness. It's the part of you that's been waiting to be seen, held, heard. And when you finally sit with it, not to fix it, but to understand it, you unlock something powerful, wholeness. And wholeness is the true starting point of manifestation, not perfection, not positivity, wholeness. When you stop fighting yourself, when you stop resisting your own pain, when you stop shaming your own wounds, you begin to return home to your essence. And from that place, you no longer need to chase anything. You become love. You become abundance. you become peace, and the world, it simply responds. Section 2. The energy behind desire. Why wanting can push it away. Let's talk about desire. Not the pretty kind you post on vision boards, not the filtered version that sounds good on paper. The real kind. The kind that burns in the center of your chest, keeps you up at night, and whispers, "There's more." Desire is not the problem. In fact, it's sacred. It's the compass of your soul. But the energy behind desire? That's where things get complicated. Because if your desire is wrapped in urgency, if it's laced with desperation, if it sounds like, "I need this to be okay," or "I can't be happy until," then you're not actually moving toward your dream. You're running away from yourself. And the universe knows. You can't trick the frequency. You can't fake calm when you're shaking inside. You can't chant abundance while fearing the bills. You can't pray for love when you secretly believe you're unworthy of it. Because what you really attract isn't the object of your desire. It's the emotion you send it out with. If you desire love from emptiness, you'll attract someone who confirms your emptiness. If you seek success to prove your worth, you'll find success that always needs more proving. If you chase peace from a place of chaos, you'll manifest stillness that never lasts. That's why sometimes, the more you want something, the further it runs. Not because you're wrong to want it, not because you're being punished, but because the wanting itself is heavy. And the universe flows where it's light. It's not just what you want. It's who you are while wanting it. Are you grasping? Or are you open? Are you chasing? Or are you ready? Are you trying to prove your value? Or are you living it already? This is where most of us get stuck. We think desire is about getting. But the most powerful desires aren't about getting anything. They're about becoming something. You don't want love. You want to become someone who feels lovable. You don't want money. You want to feel safe, free, alive. You don't want the dream job. You want to feel valued, seen, purposeful. But if you're still trying to fill a void, if you're still trying to fix something within you through things outside of you, then desire becomes a mask. A beautiful one, but still a mask. And so we walk the world, masked in wanting, trying to buy our way into wholeness, trying to attract love without loving ourselves, trying to reach peace without sitting in silence, trying to become powerful without facing our pain. But here's the truth. Desire that comes from fear creates more fear. Desire that comes from lack breeds more lack. Desire that comes from ego will always end in exhaustion. Because you can't manifest from a war with yourself. And so the invitation is this: don't just ask, "What do I want?" Ask, "Why do I want it? What am I hoping this thing will finally make me feel?" And then ask, "Can I feel that now, without it?" Because when you realize that you don't need the thing to feel the feeling, that's when you become magnetic. When you embody joy before the relationship. When you live in gratitude before the money. When you move in peace before the healing. You're not hoping anymore. You're remembering. You're not chasing the dream. You're becoming the match for it. That's the shift. That's the secret no one tells you. Desire isn't fulfilled by reaching. It's fulfilled by resonance. When you say, "I want love," but your body says, "I'm ready to be seen." When you say, "I want success," but your nervous system says, "I feel safe in who I am." That's when it happens. Not always instantly, not always obviously, but always powerfully. Because the universe doesn't need to be begged. It just needs your coherence, your congruence, your clarity. So maybe the most radical thing you can do is not to want harder, but to soften. Soften the fear. Soften the timeline. Soften the grip. And ask yourself, what if nothing is missing? What if I'm not broken? What if I don't need fixing? What if every desire I have is simply life trying to remember itself through me? And what if my only job is not to force it, but to feel it? To become the space where my dreams feel safe to land? That's not passivity. That's power. True power doesn't chase. It calls. And that call, it doesn't come from noise. It doesn't come from screaming your worth into the void. It comes from stillness, from softness, from knowing that what is truly meant for you isn't something you have to beg for. It's something that's already been waiting for you to meet yourself. Section 3. The stillness between effort when doing less creates more. There's a space no one teaches us to honor, a space between the effort and the outcome, between the planting and the harvest, between the asking and the receiving. It's called stillness, and it is where the magic happens. But we don't like stillness, do we? Stillness feels like failure, like laziness, like not trying hard enough. We are taught to glorify the grind, to hustle for our worth, to prove our value through movement. Every second accounted for, every moment maximized, every silence filled with noise. But here's what we forget. Not everything grows because you push it. Some things grow because you leave them alone. Imagine planting a seed. You water it. You give it light. You check the soil. And then what? You walk away. You don't dig it up every day to check its progress. You don't yell at the soil for being slow. You don't force the flower to bloom with your willpower. You trust the process. But when it comes to our own lives, we treat ourselves like broken machines, not living ecosystems. We think if something isn't happening fast, it must not be working. So we try harder, push harder, overthink, overdo, over-effort. And in the noise of all that doing, we miss the wisdom of becoming. Stillness is not the absence of progress, it's the birthplace of it. Because it's in stillness that integration happens. That transformation takes root. That clarity arrives. You don't get stronger at the gym. You get stronger after, in the rest. You don't heal while talking. You heal in the silence after the tears. You don't grow while planning. You grow in the pause after the leap. But stillness feels unfamiliar. It feels unsafe to a nervous system addicted to motion, to a mind raised on productivity as identity. So we resist it. We think, if I stop moving, I'll fall apart. But what if that's the point? What if falling apart is the first step to falling into place? Because there are parts of you that can only surface when everything else goes still. Your truest self doesn't speak in hustle. It whispers in the quiet. It says, you don't have to prove anything anymore. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to be held, not just hold. But here's the hard part. Stillness asks you to sit with the very thing you've been running from, your own unmet feelings. It's easier to stay busy than to feel lonely, easier to scroll than to sit with sadness, easier to plan than to face the fear of not knowing. But the emotions you avoid don't go away. They wait. And they will keep waiting until you stop long enough to hear what they have to say. So the invitation is not to do nothing forever. It's to do nothing sometimes, on purpose, with intention, to pause the fixing, to pause the figuring out, to pause the constant search for answers and become available to insight. Because insight doesn't arrive when you demand it. It comes when you make space for it, just like breath. Just like love, just like grace. The most profound shifts don't come when you're striving. They come when you're surrendered. When you're quiet enough to hear the soft voice of truth inside, you say, you're not behind. You're not broken. You're just in the middle. And the middle is sacred. It's the cocoon, the chrysalis, the dark, quiet, uncomfortable place where wings are built. Everyone wants the butterfly. No one honors the cocoon. But if you skip the stillness, you miss the strength. If you bypass the pause, you miss the presence. Because what you're becoming isn't forged in the doing, it's revealed in the being. So maybe the real question isn't, what should I do next? Maybe it's, what's trying to unfold in me if I finally let go of needing to control it? Stillness isn't punishment, it's preparation. It doesn't mean nothing's happening. It means everything is. Beneath the surface, beneath the stories, beneath the noise, your life is reorganizing itself to match your new frequency. And it needs your cooperation, not your force. So if you're in a season of stillness right now, honor it. Don't rush it. Don't shame it. Don't try to decorate it into productivity. Let it be empty. Let it be silent. Let it be enough. Because when it's time to move again, you'll know. Your spirit will rise. Your energy will shift. The next step will feel like a remembering, not a reaching. And that is the art of alignment. Not hustling for what's yours, but becoming the version of you that no longer doubts you deserve it. Section 4. Becoming the match. Identity before outcome. Let's imagine something. You walk into a room filled with people. You want connection. You want to be seen. But something inside you whispers, they won't get you. You don't belong. And suddenly, you shrink. Not physically, but energetically. You smile. You nod. You engage. But underneath it all, you're hoping they'll accept a version of you you don't even fully believe in. Why? Because your identity hasn't caught up with your desires. You say you want love, but deep down, you don't feel lovable. You say you want success, but still carry the shame of past failures. You say you want freedom, but your nervous system only feels safe in control. And that's why it doesn't stick. That's why it doesn't last. That's why it doesn't come. Not because you're unworthy, but because you haven't yet become a match for the life you say you want. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The universe doesn't give you what you ask for. It gives you what you believe you are. It doesn't respond to your goals. It responds to your identity. So if you keep trying to change your life without changing the self you bring to it, you'll end up repeating cycles. You'll manifest temporary wins, but they'll feel like costumes you can't wait to take off at night. Because sustainable transformation doesn't start with action. It starts with alignment. And alignment begins with this question. Who am I when no one is watching? If your self-worth is tied to outcomes, your income, your relationship status, your achievements, then you're not building a life. You're building a performance. But a performance can't hold peace. It demands applause to survive. And peace isn't found in applause. It's found in authenticity. So what does it mean to become the match? It means becoming the kind of person who already lives, thinks, and chooses as if the life you dream of is already yours. Not because you're faking it, but because you're aligning with a deeper truth. You were never meant to earn your worth. You were meant to remember it. Think of someone who truly believes they are enough. How do they walk into a room? How do they set boundaries? How do they speak to themselves when they fail? Now ask yourself, am I willing to live as them now, even before the external evidence arrives? Because here's the paradox. The external shifts the moment your internal identity becomes non-negotiable. Not when it's convenient, not when others approve, but when you decide, I'm not waiting for permission anymore. This is not about pretending, it's about choosing. Choosing to stop arguing for your limitations. Choosing to stop identifying with the past version of you who didn't yet know what you now know. Because healing is not just about soothing the wounds, it's about reclaiming the truth that was buried underneath them. The truth that you are not your mistakes, not your conditioning, not your trauma. You are the awareness that witnessed all of that, and the creator that can transform all of that. But to do that, you have to stop outsourcing your identity to the reactions, rejections, or recognition of others. You have to decide. I will not wait for life to validate me before I start living as who I truly am. This is what Carl Jung meant when he said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Not the version you've been told to be. Not the version that plays small to be liked. Not the version that chases love to feel whole. The real you. The one underneath the masks. The one who doesn't need fixing, just revealing. And becoming the match doesn't mean becoming better. It means becoming truer. So ask yourself, if I already believed I was enough, what would I stop chasing? What would I start allowing? How would I show up differently today? Because every time you act from that place, you're not just hoping for change, you're embodying it. And eventually, the world won't have a choice but to respond, not because you demanded it, but because you became it. Section 5. Faith over force, living from inner certainty. There's a moment in every transformation where logic fails, where the mind, with all its calculations, all its doubts and reasons and rehearsed fears, can no longer lead the way. And that moment is not the end. It's the beginning, because that's where faith begins. Not blind faith, not naive hope, but the kind of faith that arises when you've tried everything and realized that force doesn't create flow. Let's be honest, you've spent years trying to control outcomes, micromanaging people, tightening timelines, measuring progress in metrics and milestones. And for what? So you could feel safe, so you could finally breathe. But here's the paradox. The more you tried to force life into obedience, the more it resisted. Not to punish you, but to redirect you. To remind you that true peace isn't found in having all the answers. It's found in trusting yourself when you don't. This is the art of surrender. Not the passive kind, not the giving up kind, but the radical, courageous kind that says, I don't need to know how this ends to begin. Think about it. Trees don't strain to grow. Oceans don't hustle to wave. Babies don't force themselves to laugh. Nature flows because it trusts what it is. And you? You are part of that nature. You've just been taught to forget, taught to equate effort with worth, taught to grind your way to peace, taught that if you're not in control, you're in danger. But that's not truth. That's trauma. And trauma doesn't dissolve with force. It heals in safety. It softens in surrender. So what does living from inner certainty look like? It looks like choosing alignment over approval, presence over perfection, curiosity over control. It looks like waking up and asking, what feels true for me today? Instead of, what does the world expect from me today? It looks like trusting the pause, honoring the seasons, saying no without guilt, saying yes without fear. Because when your actions are rooted in inner certainty, you stop reacting to life and start co-creating with it. You stop chasing timing and start trusting rhythm. You stop demanding proof and start embodying faith. And that faith, it's not loud. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need to. It whispers. It says, I don't know what's coming, but I know who I am. That's the voice you've been avoiding with all your distractions, your endless planning, your quiet panic masked as productivity. But if you stop, just for a moment, you'll hear it. And in that stillness, you'll remember, you don't need to beg life to bless you. You are the blessing when you show up aligned. You don't need to force open closed doors. You need to walk where it feels open. And no, that's not always the fastest path, but it's the only one that doesn't cost your soul. So here's the invitation. Stop worshiping effort. Start honoring energy. Stop forcing what doesn't feel right. Start trusting what does. Because when your foundation is faith, you don't just walk toward your dreams. You become the ground they rise from. Let the others race. Let them chase approval, applause, validation. You walk with your own rhythm. You move from peace. not panic, from knowing, not needing. And one day, maybe sooner than you expect, life will mirror back the clarity you first found in yourself. Not because you pushed hard enough, but because you trusted deep enough. That's faith over force. That's what changes everything. Conclusion. The stillness that creates everything. What if the thing you've been searching for was never missing? What if peace isn't something to find, but something to return to once you stop running? Stillness has always had a bad reputation. We associate it with stagnation, laziness, even failure. In a world that screams do more, stillness whispers, be here. And that whisper? It's not weakness, it's wisdom. Because when you finally stop, not out of exhaustion, but out of choice, you begin to hear what's been drowned out by all the noise of striving. You hear your truth, your real truth, not the one shaped by fear or expectation, but the quiet, knowing that lives beneath it all. That's where clarity lives, not in a breakthrough moment, not in the next podcast or book or plan, but in the sacred silence you've been avoiding. Stillness is not passive, it's powerful. Stillness doesn't mean giving up, it means realigning. It's a return to center, a reset, a remembering. You are not here to prove, you are here to become honest, to become present, to become aligned with the life that's already trying to meet you. But here's the part most people miss. True transformation isn't loud. It doesn't always come with fireworks and fanfare. Sometimes it looks like crying on the floor. Sometimes it sounds like silence after a scream. Sometimes it feels like nothing is happening. But underneath that stillness, everything is changing. Cells are renewing. Old stories are unraveling. Energy is recalibrating. Your soul is remembering. You don't need to rush the process. You just need to stay present with it. Stay present with the discomfort, with the unknowing, with the soft ache of letting go. Because it's in that space, between who you were and who you're becoming, that your life is rewritten. Stillness is the space where you choose to stop performing, to stop chasing, to stop begging life for something that's already inside you. Because here's the truth most won't tell you. You don't need to become someone else to live a beautiful life. You just need to become fully yourself. The one who breathes deeply, the one who moves with intention, the one who trusts what they feel even when it's inconvenient. You don't attract peace by escaping chaos. You attract it by becoming peaceful inside. You don't manifest clarity by forcing answers. You invite it by creating quiet. And in that quiet, you'll discover you're not lost, you're not behind, you're not broken. You're in a sacred pause, a holy recalibration, a moment of grace disguised as emptiness. Stillness is not where dreams die. It's where they begin again, from deeper roots. So the next time life feels slow, the next time your efforts don't move mountains, the next time it feels like nothing is happening, remember this. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. You're not being ignored. You're being invited to soften, to listen, to align. Because the stillness, it's not the end of your story. It's the page before the chapter that changes everything. Let that chapter begin, not with striving, but with surrender. Not with more force, but with deeper faith. Not with noise, but with silence. Because in that silence, you'll finally hear what your soul has been whispering all along. I never left. I've just been waiting for you to stop running and come home. So if this message spoke to something inside you, maybe something you haven't had words for until now, know that you're not alone on this path. And if you'd like to walk a little further together, I invite you to like this video, subscribe for more reflections like this, and maybe even share it with someone who's also learning to stop running and start listening. Because healing doesn't happen in isolation, it happens in connection. And in case no one's told you today, you're doing better than you think. You're not behind. You're on your way. I'll see you in the next one.